If you study the history of California, I think we're very aware about James Marshall finding gold on January 24th, 1848 at Sutter's Mill, about 40 miles from here. 4 days later, Marshall brings the gold here to Sutter's fort. They test whether or not the gold was real in Sutter's office. Sutter and Marshall try to keep it a secret until word gets out. But how does word get out? And that happens on February 14th, 1848. Jacob Wittmer, a teamster who was in charge of running a wagon between Sutter's Fort and the sawmill that was being constructed on the South Fork of the American River in the Coloma Valley. That's the name given by the Yalasumni Nisenan village that lived in the region we know today as Coloma. He was running supplies back and forth, and he will arrive at a trade store that was outside of Sutter's Fort that was managed by Charles C. Smith and Sam Brannan. That trade store was located in a building just on the other side of that apartment structure there. It was an adobe structure known as the Vaquero Barracks. Vaquero means cowboy. That was the housing for the Miwok vaqueros that would tend to the 10,000 head of cattle that were here in New Helvetia. Brannan had been operating a store in that building since the summer of 1847. Wittmer goes to that store February 14th, 1848, and tries to buy a bottle of alcohol. Smith, who is actually running the store that day, says, well, you can't get this on credit. This is alcohol. Smith says, I don't need to have credit. And he produces a jar containing gold. Of course, Smith asks Wittmer, where did you find that gold? Wittmer says, from the sawmill, ask Captain Sutter. Charles Smith, of course, questioned John Sutter, who confirmed that Wittmer had found gold at the sawmill at the American River, and that Marshall had found it originally on the 24th of January. He will later write in the New Helvetia Diary, which is the daily logbook that was kept here at Sutter's Fort, Wittmer returned with 2 wagons from the mountains, that's the common term referring to the sawmill, and told everybody of the gold mines there and brought a few samples with him. Now, the word is out at the fort. Now, Charles Smith, he will write a letter to his boss, Sam Brannan. Sam Brannan also had a trade store in San Francisco. Brannan will come to Sutter's Fort, meet with Smith. He'll then go to the sawmill, and he will see people no longer working on building the sawmill. He sees them trying to find gold, but they don't have a lot of tools to do so. So he takes it upon himself that he is going to be the person to sell those materials for finding that gold. And this is at the end of the Mexican-American War. The United States military is looking to leave California. They have a lot of surplus after the war. And so there in Monterey and in Yerba Buena, there's all these ships and everything. And Brannan will actually purchase a lot of this military surplus, shovels, pickaxes, tin pans, and supply his stores. Now, these are materials he was buying for 5 or 10 cents each. He will eventually start selling this as mining equipment, and a shovel for $15 or $20, a tin pan for $10 or $20. That's how Sam Brannan will eventually become California's first millionaire, selling goods to incoming gold seekers. Of course, Brannan is the one that truly gets the word out. He will initially publish a small snippet in his newspaper in San Francisco, the California Star. That's the second newspaper that was published in California. He will publish a little bit about the gold. It's still kind of as rumors. He then will actually run through the streets of San Francisco yelling gold found on the American River, and he will publish in April 1st, 1848 edition of the California Star. He will have 2,000 of those copies made on his iron press, very similar to the iron printing press that is on display at the Sacramento History Museum. A 4-page paper, 2,000 copies, and he will pay a man by the name of Nathaniel Hawk to travel overland heading east, handing out newspapers to incoming wagon parties either going to California or to Oregon and spreading the news of gold. Now, eventually those newspapers will reach the East Coast of the United States. In the summer of 1848, you have newspapers like the New York Herald publishing about gold found on the American River in California, and this is all before President James Knox Polk will announce of gold in California in his address to Congress on December 5th, 1848. All of this leading up to what will become one of the largest migrations in human history that we know as the California Gold Rush. And it's Sam Brannan getting the word out, all because Wittmer tried to buy supplies from a trade store outside of Sutter's Fort on February 14th, 1848.